the traditional Hmong community is animist, which is a belief in spirits. And spirits all around us believe in ancestral spirits and how they can still impact our lives. Well, when I came to the U.S. in 1981, my mom, a war widow, decided to convert to Christianity. And so I know some of these animist practices, but I don't fully understand the deep meanings from them. And in terms of rituals, I'm going to read from my book, The Bride Price, which is, so this is a scene that I think really illustrates the fact of being Christian in an animist world, I guess. There's a word in here, there's a couple words, but there's one word in here that is hupli, and hupli is a soul calling ritual in the Hmong community. So I'll read this section. And just also that my father died when I was 3 years old. So I thought everyone had forgotten about my father. No one ever talked about him. Not Nia, mother, not my uncles, not my brothers, not even me. But one time after college and my uncle's hupli for his baby, I heard my father's name. After the shaman conducted the hupli, he went into the kitchen to lie down. Nia told me about this feeding the spirits ritual. I had also read about it in sociological journals for classes at St. Olaf. But this was the first time I saw Laida with my own eyes. This ritual calls back the souls of our ancestors to come and eat. It thanks them for giving the clan another son and for protecting all of us. The ancestors are fed first before we human beings can eat. In the midst of women preparing food in the kitchen, men talking in the basement, children running around outside, and guests watching wrestling in the living room, the shaman sat on a small stool in the kitchen and conducted the laida. I stood in the entryway between the living room and the kitchen, straining my ears to hear him. He placed a spoonful of cooked rice and small strips of cooked chicken and pork on a small plate. He poured rice wine over the food, and then he called back each of the ancestors by name. I did not understand all the ritualized Hmong words. I did not recognize any of the names or know how many he called. I did not know if he called both men and women, but I assumed he did not call the women since women married out and did not belong to their birth families anymore. Then I heard my father's name, Tongki. His name was a sharp whistle, trained whistle piercing my eardrums. It woke me from my trance. The shaman had moved on, calling other ancestors, but I was frozen in place. Did he really call my father? I wondered. My eyes on their own accord watered and my throat tightened. I had not heard my father's name uttered in years. I then realized that I was the one who had forgot him. I was the one who did not understand how animist Hmong remembered their ancestors. Since my family converted to Christianity in the mid-1980s, we did not conduct any of the animist Hmong rituals anymore. Pastor Vang at First Hmong Baptist Church preached that the animist spirits were spirits who were against God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. We were told to choose sides, for we could not serve two masters. My Christian self had forgotten about hupli, laida, and the other animist Hmong rituals of which I was no longer a part. These rituals and beliefs still influence older Hmong people's behaviors and attitudes. For example, although Nia has been a Christian since we came to the U.S., I could still remember her calling, let's go home, let's not stay here, at the end of the church picnic at Battle Creek Park in St. Paul. My brothers and I were standing right next to her, ready to get in the car. In retrospect, I realized that she was not talking to us. She was talking to our multiple souls who may have wandered off somewhere. She was calling them, telling them not to stay at the park. She was telling them to come home with us.
In the African American community, there are so many things to say about ritual, and the fact that African American culture is built of an enormous mixture of people who arrived on these shores enslaved and from very different cultures. And so it is a towering culture that has been built out of those parts. And you will see, certainly in any kind of dancing, a ritual origin that comes from Africa originally, but that has met with many other things. You will see in many kinds of social interactions the same kind of ritual. And I'm thinking about ritual, habit, and attitude. That an attitude could be something carried over that results in a sort of ritual behavior. All right, so having said that, I got the word ancestor in, and I've got the word elder in, and I've got ritual in, and I want to read you a poem that some of the rituals are common to many other communities. My Neng just talked about reverence for elders. I think that's certainly a part of African American culture, and some of the stories that support that are fond memories of communities where everybody was your parent, that children felt both guarded by their community members, looked out for them, and corrected by them because the whole community was able to speak to their behavior, either encouraging or discouraging. So that is an attitude that is a part of the ritual. Now, the poem I'm going to read is just because we have rituals and attitudes doesn't mean that they affect everybody in the same positive way. So I'm going to read you a poem called Mama Said. Mama said, there'll be days like this, the Shirelles. These folks about to respect me into the grave. At 80, Mama said, people think you change when you're old, but you still got a girl inside. And men could see her too, that pink silk dress. Soothe that hotel bellboy. Boy, I'm old enough to be your mama. He coy. Well, you ain't. But 70 is prime time for me to own what elder brings. I reap myself with the respect they sow. They don't know I got the road wide open in me. So while, of course, I value the respect that is a part of my ancestry and my community, at times I find it a little limiting.